We've been writing our fiction stories, and remember last week I started a story about Bennett. And although he is a real character because he's really my dog, I'm making up a fiction story, a make believe story about him. And remember, my story started and it said, one spring morning, I gave a good beginning. Bennett decided to go for a walk. He saw flowers blooming, puffy clouds, and heard birds chirping. Using my senses, it was a beautiful day in the woods. So I've told you who the character is. I've told you what's going on. I've even told you where it is, the setting. So I've set up my story really good to tell you what's going to happen. And on the next page, suddenly Bennett realized he was lost. He did not know where he was. Where was his family? So now we know the problem. We know what's going to happen. Bennett's going to have to go on kind of a quest to get back to his family. So I showed you the first thing that happened. Bennett saw Mrs. Rabbit and asked her, have you seen my family? And look, I used those quotation marks around my words because this is him talking. Have you seen my family? Mrs. Rabbit said, no. And I've used those quotation marks around her because that's our dialogue where the person is talking. So today we're going to keep on going because remember, we need three things to happen, and that's only one. He's only seen Mrs. Rabbit. So now today he's got to finish the other two parts. We got to see what happens. So let's get busy writing. All right, so I'm ready to tell you about what Bennett did next. Bennett walked on, oh, that's a sight word we know, until Bennett walked on until he saw, oh, that's one we know too. He saw Mr., and look how I used a capital M for Mr. Squirrel, and I used a capital S for squirrel because those are proper nouns, they're names. So Bennett walked on until he saw Mr. Squirrel. He said, and look, I put those quotation marks to show he's talking, hello, Mr. Squirrel. And then I put a period because I'm going to start a new sentence now. Have you, oh, we know those words. Have you seen my, oh, we know it's by my family, family, and a question mark because he's asking those quotation marks there again. Mr. Squirrel said, S-A-I-D, and you know what he's going to say, don't you? No. And look, I put it in quotation marks because that's Mr. Squirrel talking. Now I'll show you my illustration. So here's Bennett, and there's Mr. Squirrel, and he's coming up to him and asking him, have you seen my family? And we saw Mr. Squirrel said no. Okay, he has seen Mrs. Rabbit. He's seen Mr. Squirrel. We got to have one more thing, and we said that would be the raccoon. So let's write the next page and find out what happens when Bennett meets up with Mr. Raccoon. Okay, so now I'm going to write about what Bennett did when he saw Mr. Raccoon. So I'm going to start out by saying Bennett, capital B because it's his name, proper noun, darling. It's a proper noun, dude. Bennett saw, we know how to spell saw, Mr. capital M because that's part of his name, capital R for raccoon. Bennett saw Mr. Raccoon and asked him, and now I'm going to use my quotation marks again because Bennett's talking. Have you seen my, oh, we know how to spell that. That's a sight word. Family, family, and a question mark because he's asking that question. Have you seen my family? Mr. Raccoon said, S-A-I-D, quotation marks, he's talking. No, but use your nose, ooh, sneaky E on the end of nose to make that O say its name. Use your nose to find them. And I put those quotation marks because he has stopped talking now. So you can see now Bennett has had 3 characters that he's met. He's met those 3. And now Mr. Raccoon has told him to use his nose to find him because dogs follow the scent, follow the smell. They use their nose. Maybe Mr. Raccoon has a good idea. So let me show you my illustration for this page. So here is Bennett visiting with Mr. Raccoon, and Mr. Raccoon has told him to use his nose to find his family. So wonder what Bennett is going to do. It's time to solve this quest, to solve this problem. It's time for the last page. I'm so excited to write this last page. All right, so I'm ready to write the last page. Let's see how Bennett solves his problem. So I'm going to say, Bennett, start with my capital letter because it's his name and it's the first word in the sentence too. Bennett put his nose, sneaky E to make that O say its name. Bennett put his nose to the ground, O-U-ound, until he found, there's an O-U again, found his family. He, capital letter because it's a new sentence, he was so happy. Robert Y making that E sound. He was so happy to have that O-U again, found his way back to them. And I put an exclamation point for lots of feeling on the end there because he was so happy to have found his way back. Oh, now I can't wait to do my illustration for this page. Let me show you. So here is my illustration for my last page. There's Bennett with his nose to the ground. And look, I've given him a thought bubble. He's got a thought bubble and he says, I think I smell Mom. He thinks he smells my scent that he's finding me. And look at me. I've got a speech bubble. I'm like, there you are. So there's Bennett coming and finding me, and we are so happy to be back together. So that was a fun story to write about Bennett. So it's a fiction story. It's make-believe. It didn't really happen. Bennett hasn't been lost like that, and he hasn't had to talk to other animals. And animals can't talk anyway, can they? So we know it's a fiction story. It's not real. But it's a fun story to do something that could really happen with a character that's real, but your fiction story may be about a totally new character that's never been seen before. You created a totally new character, and that is awesome. Or you see, we can take a character we know and do something new with that character too in a fiction story. I can't wait to see how your fiction writing is going. Upload it for me and let me see how you're going.